Never chase. Never react. Never explain. The Stoic Secret That Changes Everything Part 1. Hook. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the people you chased never truly valued you, the arguments you won changed nothing, and the explanations you gave only made others respect you less. What if true power isn't in proving yourself? What if true power is in becoming so calm, so disciplined, and so confident that you no longer need anyone's approval? Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, understood this truth. He ruled an empire surrounded by enemies, betrayal, criticism, and constant pressure. Yet he discovered a mindset that made him nearly impossible to shake. That mindset can be summarized in 3 powerful principles. Never chase. Never react. Never explain. Today's story will show you why. Chapter 1. The Young Man Who Wanted Everyone's Approval. There was once a young man named Daniel. Daniel worked harder than everyone around him. He believed that if he was kind enough, helpful enough, and patient enough, everyone would appreciate him. Whenever friends ignored him, he chased them. Whenever someone criticized him, he defended himself. Whenever people misunderstood him, he explained every little detail. He thought that was maturity. He thought that was kindness. But instead of earning respect, he became exhausted. People borrowed his time. People ignored his boundaries. People took advantage of his generosity. Every night he asked himself one painful question. Why do I give so much but receive so little? One evening, while sitting alone in a quiet park, he noticed an elderly man calmly feeding birds. The old man looked peaceful in a way Daniel had never seen before. Daniel walked over and asked, "Sir, how do you stay so calm?" The old man smiled. "Because I stopped chasing what was never meant for me." Those words struck Daniel's heart like lightning. Chapter 2. The First Lesson, Never Chase. The old man picked up a handful of seeds. The birds didn't come immediately. He simply waited. A few moments later, the birds landed beside him naturally. Then he looked at Daniel. "If I ran after these birds," he said, "they would fly away. But because I remain still, they come willingly." He continued, "Life works the same way. The more desperately you chase respect, love, success, and approval, the further they seem to move away." Daniel stayed silent. The old man asked, "Have you ever noticed that confident people rarely beg for attention? They don't force friendships. They don't convince everyone to like them. They simply become valuable." Daniel realized that he had spent years running after people who had no intention of appreciating him. The old man continued, "Become the kind of person people naturally respect. Don't chase opportunities. Prepare yourself until opportunities chase you." Chapter 3. The Mountain Never Chases the Wind. The old man pointed toward a distant mountain. "Look carefully. The mountain never chases the wind. The wind comes. The wind goes. But the mountain remains." He smiled. "A Stoic becomes like that mountain. People will praise you. They will criticize you. They will leave. They will return. But your peace should never leave with them." Daniel felt as though years of confusion were disappearing. He had spent most of his life acting like the wind. Always moving. Always reacting. Always trying to convince people. The old man whispered, "Stillness is power." Chapter 4. Why Chasing Makes You Weak. Weeks passed. Daniel decided to stop begging people to notice him. He stopped sending repeated messages to those who ignored him. He stopped forcing conversations. He stopped trying to impress everyone. At first, it felt lonely. His phone became quieter. Some people disappeared completely. But something surprising happened. He also found peace. His mornings became calmer. His mind became clearer. His confidence slowly returned. For the first time, he realized that loneliness is often temporary, but self-respect lasts much longer. The old man smiled when Daniel told him. "You didn't lose people," he said. "You removed distractions." Chapter 5. The Hidden Strength of Silence. One afternoon, Daniel watched 2 men arguing loudly in the marketplace. Each wanted the final word. Each shouted louder than the other. People gathered around. Some laughed. Others recorded the argument. No one respected either man. The old man quietly watched. Then he asked Daniel, "Who won?" Daniel looked carefully. "No one." The old man nodded. "Exactly. The loudest person is rarely the strongest. The strongest person knows when silence is more powerful than speech." Daniel understood something remarkable. Many battles are won by refusing to fight them. End of part 1. To be continued in part 2, Never React, where Daniel faces betrayal, criticism, and discovers why emotional control is the greatest form of strength. Never chase. Never react. Never explain. Part 2, Never React, the power of emotional control. Opening hook. The old man looked directly into Daniel's eyes and said, "Most people don't lose because they are weak. They lose because they react." Think about that for a moment. One angry message can destroy a friendship. One emotional decision can ruin years of hard work. One moment of uncontrolled anger can create a lifetime of regret. The Stoics understood something most people never learn. Your emotions are natural, but your reactions are your choice. Today, Daniel is about to face the greatest test of his life. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why the strongest person in any room is not the loudest, but the calmest. Chapter 6. The test begins. A few weeks after meeting the old man, Daniel's life seemed to improve. He was more disciplined. He no longer chased approval. He focused on improving himself. He exercised every morning. He read books instead of scrolling endlessly on his phone. He became quieter, more confident, more focused. But life always tests the lessons we claim to have learned. One afternoon, Daniel arrived at work. As he walked through the office, he noticed people whispering. Some looked away. Others stared. He didn't understand. Minutes later, his manager called him into the office. "There has been a complaint about you." Daniel was shocked. "A complaint? About what?" The manager explained that another employee had accused Daniel of making a serious mistake on an important project. Daniel knew immediately who it was. Victor. The same coworker who had always been jealous of him. Daniel's heart started beating faster. His fists tightened. His mind screamed. "Go and confront him. Tell everyone the truth. Expose him." Every emotion inside him demanded an immediate reaction. Chapter 7. Remembering the lesson. Just as Daniel stood up to leave, he remembered the old man's words. "If someone throws fire at you, don't become fire. Become water." Daniel sat back down. He took one slow breath. Then another. For nearly 5 minutes he said nothing. The manager looked surprised. "Aren't you going to defend yourself?" Daniel smiled calmly. "I'll let my work speak." Those words confused everyone. People expected anger. They expected shouting. They expected revenge. Instead, they received peace. Chapter 8. Why people try to control your emotions. That evening Daniel visited the old man. He explained everything. The old man nodded as though he already knew. Then he picked up a puppet with strings attached. "Look carefully." He moved the puppet's arms. The puppet obeyed every movement. Then he looked at Daniel. "Most people live like this puppet. They let strangers control their emotions. One insult controls their happiness. One criticism ruins their entire day. One rejection destroys their confidence. But a Stoic cuts the strings." Daniel stared silently. The old man continued. "If someone can make you angry whenever they choose, they own you." Those words echoed in Daniel's heart. He realized emotional control wasn't weakness. It was freedom. Chapter 9. The Lion Never Barks. The next morning Daniel walked through a nearby park. He noticed something interesting. Small dogs barked loudly at everyone passing by. They barked at bicycles. They barked at birds. They barked at shadows. Then he remembered visiting a wildlife reserve years earlier. The lions never barked. They didn't announce their strength. They didn't chase attention. Their presence alone commanded respect. The old man's voice echoed in his memory. Dogs react to everything. Lions choose their battles. Daniel smiled. He finally understood. Strength isn't reacting to every insult. Strength is knowing which battles deserve your energy. Chapter 10: The Trap of Anger. A few days later, Victor approached Daniel. So, I heard the boss isn't happy with you. He smiled sarcastically. Daniel knew exactly what Victor wanted. A reaction. An argument. A fight. Instead, Daniel simply smiled. I hope you have a good day. Victor looked confused. He tried again. You don't even care? Daniel replied. I care about becoming better. Then he walked away. Victor stood frozen. Without realizing it, Daniel had won. Not because he defeated Victor, but because Victor failed to control him. Chapter 11: Time reveals the truth. Weeks passed. The company reviewed the project. Every email. Every report. Every document. The investigation revealed the truth. Daniel had done nothing wrong. Victor had lied. The manager called Daniel into the office. I owe you an apology. Daniel simply smiled. He accepted the apology without arrogance. Soon afterward, Victor faced the consequences of his dishonesty. Daniel never celebrated another person's downfall. The old man later said, Truth doesn't need anger to defend it. Time often becomes truth's greatest ally. Chapter 12: The Greatest Victory. As the sun set, Daniel and the old man sat on a hill overlooking the city. The old man asked, What did you learn? Daniel thought carefully. I learned that reacting would have made me look guilty. I learned that silence is often stronger than shouting. I learned that peace is something no one can steal unless I hand it over. The old man smiled proudly. Exactly. The world is full of people looking for someone to blame, someone to argue with, someone to provoke. But very few people have mastered themselves. And the person who has mastered himself cannot easily be defeated. Daniel looked toward the horizon. For the first time in his life, he felt truly free. Not because life had become easier, but because he had become stronger. He finally understood one of the greatest Stoic principles. You cannot control what people say. You cannot control what people do. But you can always control who you choose to become. And that is where real power begins. Ending. The old man stood and spoke one final sentence before walking away. The person who angers you controls you. The person who cannot be provoked controls himself. Daniel watched him disappear into the fading light, knowing the next lesson would be even more difficult. Because staying silent during an argument is hard. But refusing to explain yourself to people who have already judged you is even harder. In Part 3, Daniel discovers the final Stoic principle, never explain, and learns why your actions will always speak louder than your words. Never chase. Never react. Never explain. Part 3, Never explain, let your actions speak. Opening hook. There is a dangerous habit that keeps millions of people trapped. They explain why they are late. They explain why they failed. They explain why someone misunderstood them. They explain themselves to people who have already decided not to believe them. But Marcus Aurelius understood a timeless truth. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Sometimes silence carries more authority than 1,000 words. Today, Daniel will learn the hardest lesson of all. Never explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Chapter 13, A New Beginning. Several months had passed since Daniel learned not to chase and not to react. His life had changed. He became more disciplined. He woke before sunrise. He exercised every morning. He read books instead of wasting hours comparing himself to others. People noticed something different about him. He no longer walked with anxiety. He carried himself with quiet confidence. Yet another test was waiting. One afternoon, Daniel received a message from an old friend named Michael. I've heard you've changed. People say you've become proud. Daniel stared at the message. He couldn't believe it. The very people who ignored him before were now criticizing him for protecting his peace. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He wanted to write a long explanation. He wanted to defend himself. He wanted everyone to understand. Then he remembered the old man's lessons. He slowly put the phone down. Chapter 14. The river never explains itself. That evening Daniel visited the old man once again. Without saying a word, the old man invited him for a walk. They reached a peaceful river. The water flowed gently over smooth stones. The old man asked, "Do you hear the river explaining why it flows?" Daniel smiled. "No." "Do you hear the tree explaining why it grows?" "No." "The sun rises every morning. It never asks for permission. It never explains itself." The old man looked directly into Daniel's eyes. "Nature teaches us a powerful lesson. What is real does not need constant explanation. The river simply flows. The tree simply grows. The sun simply shines. So why do you feel the need to explain yourself to everyone?" Daniel lowered his head. For years he had wasted countless hours trying to make people understand him. Some listened. Most didn't. Chapter 15. The weight of other people's opinions. The old man picked up a heavy stone. "Hold this." Daniel grabbed it. Within minutes, his arm became tired. "What does it feel like?" "It's heavy." The old man nodded. "Now imagine carrying that stone every day." Daniel laughed. "I'd become exhausted." The old man smiled. "That stone represents other people's opinions. The longer you carry them, the heavier your life becomes." Daniel stood silently. He suddenly realized something. He wasn't tired because life was difficult. He was tired because he had been carrying opinions that were never his responsibility. Chapter 16. Actions reveal character. A few days later, another rumor spread through Daniel's workplace. Someone claimed he was trying to impress the manager. Several coworkers expected Daniel to defend himself. One even asked, "Why don't you explain what's really happening?" Daniel simply replied, "My work will answer." He returned to his desk. Day after day, he remained focused. He continued helping others. He arrived early. He finished projects with excellence. Weeks later, something incredible happened. People began saying, "You know, those rumors weren't true." Not because Daniel argued. Not because he defended himself. But because his actions had spoken louder than any explanation ever could. The truth became visible through consistency. Chapter 17. The Eagle and the Crows. During one of their walks, the old man pointed toward the sky. An eagle soared high above the mountains. Far below, several crows chased after it, cawing loudly. The eagle never turned back. It never argued. It never attacked. Instead, it continued rising higher into the sky. Eventually, the crows grew tired. One by one, they flew away. The eagle remained untouched. The old man smiled. "Be the eagle. Small minds chase drama. Great minds rise above it. When you keep climbing, many critics lose the strength to follow." Daniel watched the eagle disappear into the clouds. He understood that true strength isn't proving people wrong. It is continuing your journey without being distracted. Chapter 18. Success speaks loudly. Months passed. Daniel earned a promotion at work. Not because he demanded recognition. Not because he argued for it. But because his discipline made him impossible to ignore. The same people who once doubted him now congratulated him. Some even asked, "How did you stay so calm through everything?" Daniel smiled. "I stopped trying to convince everyone. I started becoming the person I wanted to be." His words were simple. But they carried the weight of experience. He had learned that real confidence does not need applause. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. Chapter 19. The Final Conversation. One evening, Daniel found the old man sitting beneath the same tree where they had first met. The sky was painted with orange and gold. The air was still. Daniel sat beside him. I understand now, he said quietly. The old man smiled. What do you understand? Daniel took a deep breath. I understand why chasing destroys peace. I understand why reacting gives others control. And now I understand why explaining steals confidence. The old man nodded. When your character is strong, your life becomes your explanation. He paused before adding. People who truly care will understand without endless words. And people determined to misunderstand you would never be satisfied by any explanation. Daniel looked toward the horizon. For the first time in his life, he no longer feared criticism. He no longer feared rejection. He no longer feared being misunderstood. He had discovered a freedom that no one could take away. Chapter 20. The Three Laws of the Stoic. As they prepared to leave, the old man shared his final teaching. Remember these three laws, and they will guide you through every season of life. First, never chase what refuses to stay. Build yourself, and the right opportunities will find you. Second, never react in anger. Guard your peace, because once you surrender your emotions, you surrender your power. Third, never explain yourself endlessly. Let your integrity, your discipline, and your actions tell your story. Daniel smiled with gratitude. He realized that Stoicism was not about suppressing emotions or becoming cold. It was about mastering himself. From that day forward, whenever life became difficult, he remembered those three simple principles. Never chase. Never react. Never explain. And with every challenge he faced, he became calmer, wiser, and stronger, not because the world had changed, but because he had changed. Closing for viewers. If this story resonated with you, remember this. You don't need to chase approval. You don't need to react to every insult. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. Instead, build your character so powerfully that your life becomes the loudest message you will ever send. The end. Never chase. Never react. Never explain. Part 4. The Silent Warrior, the Reward of Inner Strength. Opening hook. Most people think the hardest battle is against difficult people. But the greatest battle is the one that happens inside your own mind. Every morning, you must choose between anger and peace. Between revenge and forgiveness. Between ego and wisdom. Daniel had learned not to chase. He had learned not to react. He had learned not to explain. But now life would test him one final time. This test would determine whether he had truly become a Stoic, or whether he was simply pretending. This is the story of the Silent Warrior. Chapter 21. The Unexpected Return. Almost 1 year had passed. Daniel's life was no longer filled with chaos. His mornings began with quiet reflection. He exercised before sunrise. He read a few pages of philosophy each day. He worked with discipline. He spoke less, but his words carried more meaning. People who once ignored him now respected him. But one afternoon, someone from his past appeared. It was Victor. The same man who had lied about him months before. He looked different. His shoulders were slumped. His confidence had disappeared. His face showed signs of stress and regret. He slowly walked toward Daniel. I need to talk to you. Daniel remained calm. He simply nodded. Chapter 22. The Power of Forgiveness. Victor lowered his head. I was jealous of you. I thought bringing you down would make me feel stronger. But it only destroyed my own life. I lost my position. I lost the respect of others. And I've carried this guilt every day. I'm sorry. Daniel stood silently. His heart remembered the pain. The sleepless nights. The false accusations. The loneliness. For a brief moment, anger whispered, make him suffer like you suffered. But another voice, stronger and calmer, reminded him of the old man's teaching. Holding on to anger is like carrying burning coals, you are the one who gets burned. Daniel took a deep breath. Then he smiled gently. I forgive you. Victor looked up in disbelief. You forgive me? Daniel nodded. I refuse to let the past control my future. Victor's eyes filled with tears. At that moment, Daniel realized something profound. Forgiveness is not a gift you give to your enemy. It is freedom you give to yourself. Chapter 23: The Old Man's Final Lesson. That evening, Daniel hurried to the park. He wanted to tell the old man everything. But when he arrived, the familiar bench was empty. He searched the walking paths, the river, the large oak tree. No sign of him. An elderly gardener noticed Daniel looking around. "Are you searching for the wise gentleman?" Daniel nodded. The gardener smiled softly. "He came here one last time this morning. He asked me to give this to you." The gardener handed Daniel a small wooden box. Inside was a folded letter. With trembling hands, Daniel opened it. Chapter 24: The Letter. The letter began. "Dear Daniel, if you are reading this, then your greatest teacher is no longer beside you. That is exactly how it should be. A true teacher does not create followers. A true teacher creates people who can walk alone." Daniel paused. Tears formed in his eyes. He continued reading. "Remember, life will continue testing you. Some people will insult you. Some will betray you. Some will misunderstand you. Do not hate them. They are simply revealing the battles they have not yet conquered within themselves." Daniel's hands shook. Every sentence felt like a conversation. Chapter 25: The Four Pillars of a Stoic. The letter continued. "Build your life on 4 pillars. The first pillar is discipline. Do what is right, even when you don't feel like it. Wake up with purpose. Train your body. Train your mind. Keep the promises you make to yourself. The second pillar is patience. Everything meaningful takes time. Trees don't grow in one day. Character doesn't grow overnight. Be patient with the process. The third pillar is courage. Speak the truth kindly. Face difficulty without running away. Accept pain when it leads to growth. The fourth pillar is gratitude. Every sunrise is a gift. Every challenge teaches wisdom. Every setback prepares you for something greater. Protect your grateful heart." Chapter 26: The Storm. Days later, Daniel faced another challenge. A severe storm struck the town. Strong winds tore through the streets. Trees bent under the force. People panicked. Some shouted in fear. Some complained. Some blamed fate. Daniel watched the storm from his window. Then he remembered something the old man once said. "The storm cannot choose where it blows, but you can choose how you stand." After the storm ended, Daniel joined volunteers helping neighbors rebuild damaged homes. He carried heavy wood. He delivered food. He comforted frightened children. He never asked for recognition. He simply served. Soon the entire community noticed. Not because he spoke about kindness, but because he lived it. Chapter 27: The Real Victory. Months passed. Daniel became known throughout the town. Not as the smartest man. Not as the richest man. But as the calmest. Whenever people faced problems, they sought his advice. Whenever arguments began, his peaceful words settled them. Children admired him. Elders respected him. Friends trusted him. One young man finally asked, "Daniel, how did you become this strong?" Daniel smiled. "I stopped trying to control the world. I started controlling myself." The young man looked confused. Daniel continued, "The strongest person isn't the one who defeats everyone else. The strongest person defeats the anger, fear, pride, and selfishness inside his own heart." Chapter 28: Becoming the Teacher. One evening, while sitting on the same park bench where he had first met the old man, Daniel noticed a young woman sitting nearby. She looked exhausted. She stared at the ground. Tears rolled down her face. Daniel recognized that look. It was the same expression he once carried. After a few moments, she quietly asked, "How do you stay so peaceful?" Daniel smiled. The question sounded familiar. Instead of giving a long speech, he simply pointed toward the river. "Come." Together they walked beside the flowing water. Daniel smiled gently. "Do you hear the river explaining itself?" She looked at him with curiosity. "No." Daniel nodded. Then perhaps we can begin there. At that moment, Daniel understood the greatest lesson of all. Wisdom never ends. It simply moves from one heart to another. The old man's voice was gone, but his teachings were alive. Now it was Daniel's turn to pass them on. Closing message. Remember these words whenever life becomes difficult. Never chase what is not meant for you. Never react when others try to steal your peace. Never explain yourself to people who refuse to understand. Instead, become a person whose character is so strong, whose actions are so consistent, and whose heart is so disciplined that your life becomes an example others are inspired to follow. Because in the end, the greatest victory is not over your enemies. The greatest victory is over yourself. Never chase. Never react. Never explain. Part 5. The Crown of Self-Mastery, the Final Journey. Opening hook. What happens after you master your emotions? What happens after you stop chasing people, stop reacting to insults, and stop explaining yourself? Many believe life suddenly becomes easy. But that is not how life works. The storms still come. The critics still speak. The disappointments still arrive. The difference is this: you are no longer the same person. Today's story is the final chapter of Daniel's journey, a journey that proves the greatest victory is not changing the world, but changing yourself. Chapter 29: The Greatest Challenge. Several years had passed. Daniel had become known throughout the town as a man of wisdom. People often visited him for advice. Young men wanted to learn discipline. Parents sought guidance. Business owners asked how to remain calm under pressure. But Daniel always gave the same answer: I am still learning. One morning, a wealthy businessman arrived in an expensive carriage. His name was Alexander. I've heard you are the wisest man in this town, he said. Daniel smiled. Wisdom belongs to no man. We simply borrow it. Alexander frowned. I have everything money can buy, yet I cannot sleep. I own houses. I own businesses. I have influence. But my mind never rests. Daniel invited him to sit beneath the old oak tree. Chapter 30: 2 Cups of Water. Daniel placed 2 cups on a wooden table. The first cup was filled with clean water. The second was filled with muddy water. He stirred the muddy cup with a stick. The water became darker. Alexander looked confused. Daniel asked, What happens if I keep stirring? It becomes dirtier. Daniel nodded. And what happens if I leave it alone? Alexander watched quietly. After several minutes, the mud slowly settled. The water became clear. Daniel smiled. Your mind is like this cup. The more you fight every worry, every fear, and every opinion, the cloudier your thoughts become. But when you become still, clarity returns. Alexander remained silent. For the first time in years, he understood why success had not brought him peace. Chapter 31: The Secret of the Bamboo. As they walked through a nearby garden, Daniel stopped beside a tall bamboo plant. Do you know why bamboo survives storms? Alexander shook his head. It bends. It does not fight every wind. It does not complain. It remains rooted. When the storm ends, it stands tall again. Daniel continued. Many people believe strength means refusing to bend. But true strength is knowing when to stay calm, when to adapt, and when to keep moving forward. Alexander looked at the bamboo with new eyes. He realized he had spent years fighting every small problem instead of growing through them. Chapter 32: A Letter from the Past. That evening, Daniel returned home and opened the wooden box the old man had given him years before. Hidden beneath the first letter was another envelope he had never noticed. His heart raced. He unfolded the paper. It read, If you have found this letter, then you have already learned the first lessons of Stoicism. Now learn the final one. Never believe you have arrived. The moment you think you know everything, you stop growing. Remain a student until your final breath. Daniel smiled. Even after all these years, the old man was still teaching him. Chapter 33: The Fire Within. The following week, a young man named Samuel visited Daniel. I lose my temper every day, Samuel admitted. I know what is right, but I can't control myself. Daniel handed him a small candle. What do you see? A flame. Daniel lit another candle using the first one. Then another. And another. Soon the room glowed with light. Daniel smiled. Did the first candle lose its flame by lighting the others? Samuel shook his head. No, Daniel replied. The same is true of wisdom. When you help others become stronger, you do not become weaker. You become a source of light. Samuel nodded, his eyes filled with hope. Chapter 34: The Quiet Legacy. Years passed. Daniel grew older. His hair turned gray. His steps became slower. But his heart remained peaceful. Children gathered around him every evening beneath the old oak tree. He never spoke about becoming famous. He never spoke about becoming rich. Instead, he told them stories. Stories about patience. Stories about courage. Stories about discipline. Stories about kindness. One little boy asked, What is the most important lesson you have ever learned? Daniel looked toward the setting sun. He smiled gently. The strongest people are not those who defeat others. They are those who conquer themselves every single day. The children listened carefully. Some wrote the words in notebooks. Others simply closed their eyes and remembered them. Chapter 35: The Final Sunrise. One morning, before sunrise, Daniel walked alone to the hill overlooking the town. The air was cool. The birds began to sing. As the first rays of sunlight appeared, he remembered the day he had met the old man. He whispered softly, Thank you? Not only to his teacher, but to every hardship, every disappointment, every betrayal, every challenge. Without them, he would never have become the man he was. He finally understood the greatest Stoic truth. Your enemies may teach you patience. Your failures may teach you wisdom. Your pain may teach you compassion. And your struggles may reveal your true strength. Daniel smiled as the sun rose above the horizon. He no longer feared tomorrow. Because peace was no longer something he searched for. Peace had become who he was. Final message. As this journey comes to an end, remember these 5 timeless lessons. Never chase what does not value you. Never react when others try to steal your peace. Never explain yourself to those determined to misunderstand you. Master yourself before trying to master the world. Live with quiet strength, because your character will always speak louder than your words. The world may be loud. People may criticize. Life may test you again and again. But if you guard your mind, strengthen your character, and remain faithful to your principles, no storm can truly defeat you. That is the true crown of the Stoic. It is not made of gold, but of discipline, wisdom, courage, and inner peace. The end.